Alright, so you guys are so used to me doing music reactions, but today I thought I'd bring something a little different to the table. Now, today's video is titled The Side of the Adult Film Industry That They Don't Want You to Know About. Now, listen, in this age of degeneracy and of the degradation of moral values, it's very important to speak about these type of topics. And I thought, you know what, this is something I would normally post on Goals and Growth, which is the second channel, but I thought, you know what, let's diversify the content a bit. Let's see how you guys respond to this. Let's see what your guys' opinion is about this particular topic. And it's really something to talk about, and I think we've all been here before. We've all kind of indulged in this type of stuff, and we might not feel proud about it, we might feel bad about it, we might be currently stuck in it, but irrespective, it needs to be talked about. So we're going to be checking this out today. Make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you go and check out the new merchandise range that has recently launched. The store link is available down below. If you like something, please cop it for yourself, cop it for a family member, get it for a loved one. But every bit of support helps the channel, and if you don't want to do that, make sure you just like the video and share the video with friends and family. Let's check it out.
So I have spoken to people that have been in the porn industry before, and one thing that they pointed to me, which I just think that if people know this, I don't see how any person in good conscience could consume porn, is how high the suicide rates are for women in the industry. Yeah. And how drugged a lot of these women are to give themselves the confidence to be able to do what they are doing. Yeah. And how drugged they are after they do these scenes to be able to try to numb the pain of realizing what they have just done or what they have contributed to. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in 2018, there was like back-to-back suicides. I mean, it was every month. I think it was like 5 or 6 months in a row, somebody was dying. I have probably 15 friends that have died to either suicide or drug overdose. I just lost somebody that I was very close to last year. There's a very high death rate in the porn industry.
But at the same time, you're talking about numbing the pain, you're talking about reverting to this type of use of narcotics and whatnot, but at the same time you have to realize that it's a conscious decision that you make to pursue this path. And I mean, you can't really tell me that I didn't have any other option. There are many other options. There are many other options in which you can keep your pride and keep your self-respect. But instead you chose this path. You know that this path comes with stigma. It comes with judgment. It's always going to be that way.
And as far as drugs, I mean, I was one of those drug addicts. I had left the industry at one point at my 3.5-year mark because I was withdrawing from heroin. Oh. And that's when I ended up meeting a pimp, and he got me back into the industry for another 3.
So talk about when you became a drug addict. So you're in the industry for 3 years. You left because of your addiction. When was the first time that you did heroin, and what gave you that impulse?
Okay, so, well, heroin, I mean, there were other drugs that led up to that. So I was on set. I was new in the entertainment or in the adult industry. And I'm 105 pounds, 5 foot 1 inch. I'm not overweight, but a director tells me, you're fat, you need to lose weight.
Damn.
And in high school, although I'd never been a pot smoker, I did try coke a few times. And so I knew that it would make me not
skinny.
Eat.
Yeah.
So I asked one of the models, like, hey, I mean, apparently I'm fat and I need to lose weight. Like, is there, do you have access to any cocaine? And she was like, very suspicious as to why I was asking her. I'm like, no, I really do just want to buy cocaine. And so she ended up getting me some. And then from there, I just kind of got hooked, and I started using it every day. Yeah. And then
I mean, that's how it starts off, right? It starts off with a gateway drug and it just gets worse and worse. But listen, as I said, I can't really express sympathy, so to speak, because it's a choice you made. It's a choice you made. You know how judgmental people are going to be towards you. You still chose the path. You got to deal with the consequences.
Started dating a guy that introduced me to the Norcos, which are like Vicodin. They're for pain medication. From there, it went to Oxycontins. And then from Oxycontin, there was a girl that I was buying Oxycontins from that said, have you ever chased the dragon? And I'm like, what does that mean? And I thought she was talking about something in porn. And she's like, come over and I'll show you. So I hung out with her, and she pulled out this piece of foil, put a piece of black tar with
oh no,
it's like a plastic, the where you put your tampons in.
Yeah.
It was like a plastic from that.
Applicator.
An applicator, thank you. And she just started smoking heroin in front of me, and she's like, it's better than Oxy. So I tried it and used that for many months before I decided that, you know what, like I can't take this anymore. I had called my grandma and told her, hey, if you don't come get me, I honestly think I'm going to commit suicide because I can't take this life anymore.
Wow. Wow. So you became a heroin abuser. Started with Oxycontin, cocaine, and then it leads to something new, something stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, were you taking these drugs before scenes, after scenes, between scenes?
I lived on drugs because what happens when you become addicted is your body goes through intense withdrawals. So if you don't feed it what it needs, you're going to lose control of your bowels, your legs, everything's going to hurt. You're going to be in intense pain, like far worse than the flu. Like you just feel awful. So
I mean, I've heard a few horror stories and I've seen a few horror stories, you know, on TV shows and whatnot, documentaries, but I don't think you realize how that exactly feels until you go through it yourself or you see someone physically go through it themselves. But like I said, choices.
I was on them every day. When I was down to like my last 10 to 15 pills, I'm like, I need to call the dealer because if they don't have them, I need to figure it out. Like, I mean, it was a vicious cycle of like, I'd get paid from porn, but then I'd have to go and chase the drug dealer. Like my net worth was said to be like, I don't know, $3.4 million by the time I left the business. I left that industry with my last paycheck, $1,500. That was it.
You're making money and then you're spending the money to get drugs.
Yeah.
Wow. And I only know one person personally that's ever been addicted to heroin, what I've known from way back, from middle school. And I remember seeing her as she got clean. And when she described to me in detail what the withdrawals were, like to get off of heroin, she just said it was like dying.
Yeah.
That it's
Absolutely.
Just, it's like dying. Every piece of your body is just, you know, she was, you know, in the hospital, and she said you can't even describe that sort of pain.
It's awful.
And yet you were willing to go through that pain. You call your grandmother and you say, come get me. And did she come get you?
She did. She drove up to Los Angeles, moved me in with her into her home in San Diego.
Kudos to Granny.
I mean, I did get help from a doctor. I went to a doctor, got on what was called Suboxone to kind of help alleviate the withdrawal a little bit, but it was still pretty bad.
Okay. Why didn't you call your mother or your father?
You know what? I, at that time, had a very, very hindered relationship with my mom.
Of course.
She and I have a great relationship now, but she was the cause of a lot of the voids that I had in life, you know?
Okay. So
I mean, and I think finding out your daughter is in that industry is not the thing any parent would want to hear. Of course, you've cared for that child. You've tried to raise that child with the correct values and the correct morals, and she engages in this type of course, you're not going to feel good about it.
Grandmother comes to the rescue. And how long did you spend with her?
I was with her for maybe 3 to 5 months before I met a guy that I started dating. He was in a motorcycle gang. I moved in with him. He got stabbed to death in front of me. And then from there, I had nowhere to live. And the pimp, which was his friend, comes and kind of is like, oh, well, I'll put you in a hotel for a few days. And he's giving me meth. And, you know, because at this point I started using crystal meth.
And did you get clean while you were with your grandmother?
I did.
Sort of.
Yeah, but it was a very short stint of being clean. Like it didn't last long, obviously.
So you fell right back in. You watch your ex-boyfriend get stabbed to death.
Crazy.
His friend, he's the pimp, says, hey, I'll take care of you. You need somewhere place to stay. And now he's supplying you with drugs, methamphetamine.
Yes.
Totally different drug from heroin.
Totally different, yeah. This one gets you wired. So I start hearing voices. So he ends up taking me to a mental institution. I get clean there for a few days, and then he brings me to his apartment. He was actually a believer, a backslidden believer. So he introduces me to the Bible and takes me and gets me baptized.
This is the same person that gave you the meth, and he is a pimp.
Yes.
But he's also a believer. And after you go into a mental institution, he says, actually, by the way, I forgot to mention that aside from being a pimp, and aside from supplying you with drugs, I also am a believer.
That is the most hypocritical thing I've ever heard in my entire life. You introduce someone to drugs, you introduce them to the porn industry, but you take her to get baptized. I have never heard anything more hypocritical than that. I'm going to end the video on this note, by the way, because that is actually so infuriating. I mean, and that's part of the reason that I'm not so heavily invested in that, in religion itself, because you have the biggest hypocrites sitting in the front of those institutions, right? At the head of those institutions are the biggest hypocrites. That is how the world works. But ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this type of content, make sure that you leave your recommendations down below. Leave your thoughts down below about this woman's story, and I'll see you next time.